So, what's helpful then in this previous information about why we struggle with setting boundaries or what can impact that? It's helpful then to learn some steps for how to set healthy boundaries. And where I would first place this is part of beginning to recognize setting healthy boundaries, our need to do it and how to do it, is by starting to build some self awareness. So, when I talk about self awareness, I'm talking about that dialogue in our heads that we might notice. So, for example, let's just take a classic one. You're with a group of friends, or you're with family, or maybe you belong to a certain committee, and the question comes up about someone asks you to help you with something. Now, maybe if you've got the time and everything, you gladly say yes. But let's look at the situation where you're really pressed for time because you have a lot of things on. The request comes to you, and that feeling you can get of maybe resistance or, oh my gosh, I don't really want to do this. So, in building self awareness and starting to practice that, if that's what you feel inside, if that's the voice that comes into your head, that voice is trying to tell you something. So part of starting to learn about creating a healthy boundary is starting to notice what comes up for us, starting to notice the signs, what we feel, what we experience. And another way of that's included in this about setting healthy boundaries is to think about your needs. And here's what I mean by that. Sometimes we know our needs ahead of time, and sometimes we're clarifying our needs right in the moment. So, for example, you might be a morning person, and for you, you protect your mornings because you might have a certain routine you like to do. You might meditate, you might exercise, you might have time with family. And so you know that when someone asks you to do something in that morning hour or hours, you likely say no because you're protecting that time and you're really clear on that. Or maybe you like to go to bed at a certain time, so you maybe say no to certain invitations or certain requests if it's going to impact you going to bed because you know that it's important for you to get your sleep. So sometimes we know our needs ahead of time, and that helps us stay in tune with what we want to say yes to or no to, or setting a boundary. Sometimes our needs we're clarifying them in the moment. So someone asks you to help with something, or maybe there's a certain behavior, someone that you're with a person who never listens to you, or a person who always interrupts you. And what you're noticing in that need is you have a need to be listened to. So sometimes these come up in the moment. So if someone's making a request of you and it's kind of on the fly, and you notice your hesitancy, there's absolutely nothing wrong with saying, can I get back to you about that? I need to check my calendar. Or we're noticing that someone keeps interrupting us when we have a real need to be heard. We might in that moment, and I'll talk more about this when we talk about assertiveness, we might in that moment say to the person, can I stop you there for a moment? I'm just noticing that I've been trying to say something to you that's important, and you keep interrupting me. Could you please let me finish? And then I'm happy to hear you. So again, developing our self-awareness, noticing what goes on for us, and thinking about our needs, these are starting places for helping us to set boundaries. I'll go through one more slide and then I'll stop again. The other thing that's helpful to us is to be able to get clear on those things that we can commit to. So again, let's come back to that. A friend asks you to help plan a party, or a family asks you to help plan a party. Sometimes in those moments, especially if tend to be the yes person or the people pleaser, we might want to say yes without actually checking in with ourselves around, do I really have the time to do that? So when we allow ourselves some time and space before we commit to something, what's important about that and what's helpful is that we can be really clear on the commitment. So I might say to someone, you know what, I'm really happy to help you plan that party. I've got 2 hours that I'm able to give to you. And so we get clear so that when I show up to help my friend plan the party, I can really be with them and be there for them for those 2 hours. If, on the other hand, I'm saying yes because I want to be the nice person, but I know I really don't have the time to do it, then often what happens is we race in, we just want to get the job done so we can leave, and we're not really there. So our nicety, wanting to say yes, be the nice person, can actually really backfire on us. And we end up feeling pressed for time, or we might feel resentful or frustrated. So allowing ourselves space and a moment to get clear on what we can commit to can really help us to set a healthy boundary. So before I go any further, I want to stop again, and I just want to check in with you to see if there's any comments or questions, thoughts. And again, if you're in the lounge, don't hesitate to put them in the chat. Okay, I'm gonna assume that we're okay. We're tracking okay here, and I'll bring my screen back up and I'll stop again. This sort of tags on to that point I was making about self-awareness. So checking in with yourself, and this is a practice. It might not, and building self-awareness is a practice. So as I alluded to before, if you're in a conversation with somebody and maybe they're speaking in a derogatory way about a person or about a situation, or you go to a store and you have an interaction with someone there and the person's rude to you, what you want to start to notice in these scenarios is to notice if you ever feel uncomfortable or resentful or uneasy. Because these are signs. Something's coming up like this because something's not landing well with you. It's not aligning for you. So that's where it can just be easy to quickly ask ourselves, why am I feeling hesitant here? Or why am I feeling bothered? I give this example of a client that I was working with, and she went out for a coffee with a friend. And they had a mutual friend that was going through a difficult time. And my client, who had met with the friend, this friend was speaking about their mutual friend in quite a harsh way. And in the moment, she didn't say anything because she was a little startled by it. It surprised her to hear that. When she came home, however, what she noticed was how that comment did not sit with her. And it crossed a boundary for her in terms of, that's not how you speak about a mutual friend, especially when a friend's going through a difficult time. So she thought about it and she thought it felt right to her to call that friend she had the coffee with and just talk through what happened, and to share that she found that conversation difficult and she found it hard to hear what the friend had said. So that wasn't easy for her friend to hear, but they were able to talk it through and work it through. So as part of my client checking in with herself and really paying attention to what wasn't landing for her, it allowed her to see what was really going on.